Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our match preview of Fulham's match against Aston Villa. And what that means is our three keys to victory for Fulham. So we will be going through that in probably the next half hour, maybe 45 minutes, to really go through our thoughts on the upcoming match. We'll also be discussing Marco's presser as well. Some interesting tidbits from there. I'll also share what I learned from a couple podcasts on Aston Villa, get Tony's thoughts on Aston Villa. We have a bunch to talk about. We are live on YouTube. We're live. But if you want to actually listen to this as a podcast, please do listen to us and become a member on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. I'm offering 2 free months to the page. And if you want to get access to that, please do check out. It's pinned to my Russ_Goldman X account and also the Cottage Talk X account. Click on it, and you will get 2 months of free access. We'd love for you to join us there. All right, my friend. How you doing, Tony? Looking forward to talking about this upcoming match.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And let's get into it.
Okay, excellent. So let's not waste any time. I'm going to share some tweets, quotes from Marco Silva from his presser. Let's start with Marco's presser. Interesting stuff. And I just want to get your overall thoughts on what you learned from the presser, and then I'll share the tweets.
Yeah, so obviously, I think that following the other night, and obviously, with the game coming Sunday, the first thing that he sort of alludes to and talks about is that there are no major injury concerns. There's a chance, he said, that Kevin might be available depending on how well he trains tomorrow. Yep. He's obviously done something to his shoulder. Nobody quite knows what. But even if he's fit, would Marco Silva start him? I don't think so. So it's whether or not he's going to be fit to make the bench, I would imagine. Then what really struck me was the fact that he came out and he said he wants his team to play with confidence. And, that to me is about playing front foot football, Russ. And I can't see us going to Villa Park and playing front foot football. So is he thinking about changing something tactically on Sunday? Or is he just literally going to approach the game in exactly the same manner as he has done, Brentford, Leeds, and, just rely on the confidence that the players have at the moment because they're on a 2-win winning streak. So that, I think, is going to be, quite interesting to see.
I think the tactics are going to be interesting because I've listened to a lot of talk in the lead up to this match, Tony, and actually Fulham had a really good talk about this. And if you look at Villa and you look at how Fulham struggled against Cambridge United, give that as an example, maybe Villa would struggle against a team that plays a low block. But I don't see Fulham doing something like that at Villa Park. As you said, I can't imagine he's going to do that, Tony. But I think that he will want to play in the counter. But the question is, does Aston Villa want to have the ball? Because, again, what I listen to is that right now, they actually are a team that's kind of in transition to who they are right now because of the losses that they have. When I was listening to Fulhamish, they were talking about, based on what they're hearing, is that one of the big problems with Villa is the lack of width that they have because of the players they lost. So what do you think Marco's approach is going to be, based on the pressure? You think he's going to go there not to set up shop?
Yeah, I think he's going to try and strike the balance. But look, Villa have started the season, poorly as far as they're concerned. And Unai Emery is not a manager to sort of, wait around for things. He's going to want, answers and questions answered immediately. Tomorrow on Sunday, historically, Villa Park hasn't been, certainly in recent years, hasn't been a great place for Fulham. I think it's it's a big ask for that to suddenly, change overnight. But I think now is a good time to be playing Aston Villa for sure.
Absolutely.
They're clearly struggling. They're struggling for goals. And, 4 points from 5 games for them is a really, really, poor return. But we all know that it's highly unlikely that Villa are going to continue in this vein of form. And at some point, it's going to change.
Yeah.
Now, with Fulham coming to town, historically, we all know what happens when, a team's on a bad run and they haven't won for 20 games and Fulham come to town and that all changes.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant, because this is Fulham we're talking about. And it would be such a Fulhamish thing to do on Sunday, to go there and get beat, and for Villa to score 4 goals, because that is just the typical thing for Fulham to do. But look, we have to go by how the season started. Fulham are full of confidence at the moment. They have won their last 2. They are going for 3 straight wins. So they have nothing to lose. But again, it all goes down to, Russell, how Marco Silva sets us up and how brave he's going to be in the final third. That is what it's going to come down to.
I agree with all that, Tony. And one thing that I want to talk about in regards to the press, I'm going to share some quotes now with you as we're doing this live, and we're live on YouTube. And these quotes focus on Josh King. I find them interesting. So I'm going to share them and I want to talk about it, because I think it's pretty obvious that Josh King has become an integral part of the team this season and has really pushed Emile Smith-Rowe out of the way. That's the way it is going right now. But I want to just share these quotes because I think it'll also tell you about not only the mentality of Silva, but also of what he thinks of Josh King and what Josh King is doing. So this is Silva on King. Quote, "If you analyze the game after 5 minutes after the error," those are in quotes, "he did the same thing. He has to have that experience to scan it a bit better. It's our way of playing. He has to play in that way. That's how we built him. We cannot hide. He knows he has to do the right thing. He was able to play a very good game." And this is in parentheses after the error. And then the same thing there was parentheses in the other quote as well. So what do you make of those quotes about Josh King from Silva?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's Marco Silva stating the obvious. What he's basically saying there, Russ, is he's backing Josh King, and rightly so. And I wouldn't expect it to be any different. He's an 18-year-old playing at the highest level of football, developing, learning, and he has to accept that there will be times when, he makes the wrong decision, makes a bad pass, drops into the wrong areas, but he's always trying to do the right thing, Russ. And I don't think you want to discourage him from doing that. He'll learn from that. He won't be the first and he won't be the last player to play a blind pass square. It happens. That's part of the journey for him at the moment. But, it's been a noticeable difference since he's been playing. The energy that he brings into our midfield and the bravery and the fearlessness that he brings in terms of when he picks the ball up, he wants to run at players. He wants to make things happen. He doesn't hide. He's always looking to get involved in the game. And that is what I love about Josh King. And that has to be encouraged. So do you know what? Let him loose at Villa Park on Sunday and let him do his thing.
See, I look at this game and I know the history recently of Fulham at Villa Park, but I'm going to use Chelsea as the example, going to Stamford Bridge, how Josh King played, Tony. And if he does something similar, and right now, if you're looking at it, a team that's in a little better form would be Chelsea than Aston Villa. Let the kid do his thing, as you just said, Tony, and we might reap the rewards from it. You've got nothing to lose. But as Marco said in those quotes, he is going to have them. Their style of play is never going to change. So he's going to continue to do this. He just has to be careful when he's making these passes. But beyond that, I expect him to have a lot of influence in this game, Tony.
Absolutely. And what do defenders hate the most, Russ? What do they absolutely hate the most?
Players running at him.
Players running at them. Absolutely. And Josh King does it in abundance. Every time he gets the ball, he tries to play positively. And, that is why this kid is so important. And it's also important that, Marco Silva manages him correctly, and that we don't forget that actually we have other players that can do that job as well, i.e. Emil Smith-Rowe, who I think has a big part to play on Sunday.
Sure.
He's another player that desperately needs minutes in his legs, desperately needs game time. And obviously at the moment, there is that conundrum about, Josh King is effectively keeping him out of the team at the moment, because for whatever reason, Marco Silva doesn't trust to play them both together at the same time at the moment. So look, I think ultimately, you don't want Josh King to change his game from being this brave player that plays with no fear to suddenly becoming this cautious, always playing on the safe side, because we've got two players that do that behind him already. And we don't need a third. So yeah, no, let him play, let him do his thing, let him make mistakes. It doesn't matter.
I totally agree with that. But what's great about talking in regards to Josh King, I've seen no evidence, as we would say over here, after making a mistake, many players would, what we would call turtle, meaning that they would go into their shell and not continue to push forward. This kid has a very short memory, and he just continues to do it. And that's what makes players go from, say, average players to good players to great players. You have to have a short memory, Tony. And based on what I've seen so far from Josh King, I know he's only 18 years old. I don't think he is overly fazed by the moment. He overcame this mistake. And as Silva said in those quotes, he played very well after that. These are all huge positives. So I don't expect him to be tentative. In fact, I expect him to be the exact opposite. And that's what Fulham need at Villa Park. They need someone to be brave. We want Silva to be brave. I know that this kid's going to be brave, Tony.
You don't get to be 17 years old and playing in the Premier League if you haven't got broad shoulders, if you're not mature, and if you can't handle a bit of disappointment. And the bottom line is he's able to brush it off. He's got good people around him. You saw what happened after he made that mistake, how quickly the players, got in and around him. And
exactly.
And the great thing is he didn't let him beat him up. He let it go and he got on with it. And that is the sign of a player that, is in the right mindset and has the maturity to go on and push on and become the player that we all know that eventually he will become, which he will become an England international. I have no doubt about it in my mind whatsoever.
Because you have to have it up here. You can have all the physical skills, all the talent in the world, but if you don't have this, then you're limited to how far you can go. He's got this, and I know our friend Chris is watching, and I'll just mention, sorry, Tony, I'm going to mention Tom Brady. My son's named after Tom Brady, but whenever Tom Brady would make a mistake, especially early in his career, he just went on with his business and learned from it and became a better player because of it. And he never turtled. Like I said, he would always go on to the next play, very short memory. Josh King has that. And that's something I'm going to say, I think it's fairly rare for a player of this age to have that already. That's why I know he's going to be a success, because I think he already has the mental part of the game and he has the physical part of the game. It's just a matter of time. And you are right. He will be an England international. I totally agree with you on that. All right. So let's now talk about Villa. And they've had a very poor start to the season. They have not won a match in the Premier League yet. So they're pressing a little bit. I watched the match yesterday, Tony, and I wasn't overly impressed against Bologna, but they got a victory, and that's important. It's basically in these Europa League matches, it's just advancing, right? It's just winning. They found a way to win, and that's all that matters. But I know that they're struggling, like I mentioned. I listened to a lot this morning in preparation so we can have a conversation about Villa. And it sounds like to me, based on what I've listened to, they have lost a lot. They are struggling with width. Like I said, I was listening to this on the Fulhamish podcast, that the losses of Jacob Ramsey and Leon Bailey, John Duran earlier on, going all the way back in January, it's all caught up to them a little bit. They're under financial constraints. They're really trying to figure out exactly what's going on. This goes deeper than just the team on the pitch. This is a club that is actually trying to figure out how to play in Europe and also financially keep going, because they spent a lot of money the last several years. And I think they are struggling with the new financial rules. And I think it's that situation, I think, is coming to the pitch. So what do you make of Villa so far?
Well, look, obviously they've been underwhelming in terms of their start. If you'd said at the beginning of the season that Villa would be in the bottom three after 5 games, you'd be questioning your sanity. But yeah, look, there's obviously been quite a few changes. Some new personnel and what have you, cut players that have got a year older and so on. And Emery's struggling to get a tune out of them so far. I expect them to be a very different animal on Sunday. Obviously, having beaten Bologna 1-0 yesterday and kept a clean sheet. But when you look at their bench, Russ, and you look at the players that are on their bench, I mean, Watkins didn't start yesterday. Jadon Sancho didn't start yesterday. Victor Lindelof didn't start yesterday. Harvey Elliott didn't start yesterday. Dignas didn't start yesterday. Tyrone Mings. So, I expect all of those players to be heavily involved on Sunday. And obviously the Harvey Elliott thing, that's got something written all over it, as you know. So look, he hasn't gone there to sit on the bench. He's gone there to play. And my thoughts about Harvey Elliott. If there was a chance that we could have signed him, we should have got him in, because he definitely would have been playing in our side, no question. I whatever you think of him, he's a very good footballer. For some reason, it just hasn't worked out at Liverpool with the quality and the players that they've got, and that's understandable. But look, at the moment, Villa need a bit of luck and they need a change in fortune. They got I think a decent point at Sunderland last week. That's not going to be an easy place to go for most teams. But they are struggling for goals, and a little bit like us, maybe they are lacking in a bit of confidence in the final third. But, if Fulham don't start right on Sunday, Russ, and allow Villa to get a foothold in the game, then they will punish us and they will grow, because they have players that can hurt us.
They absolutely do, Tony. And they also have a manager that's done a very good job against our manager. So that's also a factor in this as well. I have talked glowingly over the years about Unai Emery and what he has done for Aston Villa. Listen, they basically changed their complete trajectory when he came in. The same players, and then next thing you know, completely different results. And I think a lot comes down to him, but the players obviously have to do the job, and they have underneath him. And I know they're struggling right now, but I respect this team. This isn't a situation where, say, in January, I can tell you this is who Aston Villa are, because they're not that team yet. Right now, I still feel that they are still the same team from last season, missing a few pieces, but there's a lot of quality there. So there's no way in hell I'm taking this team lightly at all. In fact, I respect them the way I would respect them from last season. If they continue in this form, that's a different story. Like I said, if we're in Christmas and they're still like this, then they're like Tottenham Hotspur last season. But they're not. I don't think they're going to end up like Spurs or Manchester United. They'll end up at the top of the table by, I would say, Christmas. They will be where we are right now, eventually, because of the players that they have and the manager that they have. I have a huge amount of respect for Aston Villa. I'm not a fan of theirs, but I can respect them. And that's why this is going to be a difficult match, and we're laying it out why it's going to be a difficult match. Yes, they're going through struggles, but Fulham are coming to town. I always say that, and I always get concerned. We're coming to town. So we'll see what happens there. They've been a bogey team of ours. Crystal Palace, too. Those are the teams that have really done a number on us lately, and I'm a little fearful of this, but that's going to lead us to go to the 3 keys to victory. Let's go with your third key to victory for Fulham to beat Aston Villa at Villa Park. Where are you going to go with this, Tony?
The first thing is we have to be very, very organised out of possession of the ball. That's the first thing. And it's going to lead me to thinking, that's why I wouldn't bring Robinson back into the team tomorrow. I'd stick with Cess, and I would make sure that out of possession, we are defensively solid and our shape is absolutely right. And if we keep our shape and we're organised and we're structured and the foundations are right from the off, then that gives us the platform to go build and hopefully, get the result.
Okay. I'm going to go in that direction, but I'm going to be more direct talking about one player, because this one player struggled against Aston Villa last season, and it's Joachim Andersen. So for me, we need to see the Joachim Andersen that we've seen so far this season, Tony. He's going against a few players that have serious pace. He struggled against players with pace last season. This is going to be maybe a watershed moment for him. This is big. He needs to be at his best against Aston Villa. That's my number 3. Let's go to number 2, Tony.
So my number 2 might be stating the obvious, but we need to be switched on and hugely organised at set pieces defensively. It's huge. Corners, dead ball situations, throws, all of that sort of thing. We need to make sure that we are clinical defensively in those areas, that we clear our lines, that we don't give away, any cheap runs, any loose balls, and that we defend those areas, especially the 18-yard box and 6-yard box as well as we can.
Okay. So my number 2 involves central midfield. It's going to focus a lot on Josh King, but I also want to mention, because I really believe it will be Lukic and Berga, and they're going to have to support and give the protection to the back four, but also I would expect it to be Lukic to go forward and support a little bit of Josh King, because I want to see the Josh King, for Fulham to be successful, I think he has to have a huge impact in this game, like he did against Chelsea. That's what I think is a major key. I know it's a lot to talk about a young kid, but I think Josh King has to have an excellent game here, but he needs support from his 2 other central midfielders. That's my number 2. Tony, I'll get us going with number 1. It's the coaching battle. I like doing this. My number 1 is, this is going to come down to Marco. He's going to have to pull all the right levers here and out-coach Unai Emery, which is difficult because I don't think he's done it yet. So for me, it's going to come down to, I think, ultimately, who wins the coaching battle. Will he make the right substitutions? Will he counter what Unai Emery is going to do? Because again, Marco doesn't really change much. We know this. He just changes the players. He doesn't change the formation. So I don't think he'll do that. But he better have Fulham set up ready to go against this manager and this team. I think the coaching battle will ultimately decide who wins the match.
Yeah, and I think my number 1 is linked to what you've just said, in as much as Iwobi, Harry Wilson, and I think he's going to go with Raul tomorrow, because I think Muniz has got a slight hamstring injury, so I'll be surprised. But so I think those 3 have to be electric. And I think Chris alluded to it in the comments there about being clinical and taking the chances when they come, and he's absolutely spot on. At the end of the day, goals win football matches, Russ, and those 2 plus Raul, when they get into those situations and they get their chances, they have to take them and be clinical. It's 50-50 whether we'll see Kevin tomorrow or not. I'm erring on the side of probably not, but let's wait and see. And, if he comes in or comes on at any point with Smith Rowe, again, Silva, his changes at the right times are going to be important and key. They also have to have an impact. We can't be sitting back waiting for things to happen, waiting for Kevin to hit the ground running. He's got to come on now and he's got to start delivering, and he's got to start having an impact. And that is basically the bottom line. So our forward players tomorrow have to be at it, and they have to be clinical in those big moments.
Okay, very good. I think we're giving everyone some really interesting things to look for in this match against Aston Villa. For Fulham to get a victory, would I take a draw? Absolutely, but I want a victory, Tony, and I know it's not going to be easy against a team that really, going to say it, has owned Fulham for a while now. Well, let's change that at Villa Park. I would like to see that. So let's start with the starting 11. Let's do what you and I would do, and then we can talk about what we think Marco's going to do. I think we both know what Marco's going to do. What would you do? And then I'll share what I would do.
What would I do? Well, look, I'd keep the same back five as it is. I wouldn't change anything there, simply because, as I said, defensively we're looking, stronger and much more organised. Again, I'm going to say it. I would probably drop out for this particular game, Sander Berger. I play Lukic as the holding player, and I bring in Smith Rowe to play alongside Josh King.
Okay.
And I'd go Raul, Iwobi, and Wilson. That is the only change that I would make, would be Smith Rowe coming in and playing, because I think at some point, Russ, he has to start playing.
I agree with that, Tony. But I'm actually going to play it safe here because of the opponent, based on what I've, like I said, listened to and watched. What Villa are really struggling with is they're trying to create from central midfield, and they're struggling because they don't have any room. Rodgers is actually struggling. Like I said, without these flair players wide, without these wide players that they're missing, everything is now tougher for them to maneuver for players like Watkins and Rodgers. So that's why I'm going to stick with Berg and Lukic for this game. Not moving forward, but for this game on the road. If the game was at Craven Cottage, I would do what you said. But with it being on the road, I'm kind of play it a little safe, meaning that because I think that we would have enough going forward with Josh King to hurt them. I think we might expose ourselves too much in this matchup, Tony, by playing both ESR and him together. I could be wrong. I am playing a little safe, but I'm also looking at the opponent thinking, we got to stop them and then unleash King going forward. That's where I'm going on this. So everything else, I agree with you. I want him to play Sessegnon. I don't want him to play Jedi in this match. I think we're better. We're much solid right now. I know this is going to sound terrible. It's not that I don't want Jedi to play, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's not broken yet. We're talking about the defense, so keep it. We've talked about this. It's working, especially away from Craven Cottage. Keep it. The question is, will he? Starting 11, I think he's going to keep it. I think the only change he might do is what you just said. I've been hearing things, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the situation with Rodrigo Muniz, because I've seen talk about this. Marco didn't mention anything in his presser, but I think you're right. I think he will start with Raul. What did you see in the Cambridge United match at the very end with Rodrigo Muniz? Because I didn't see this.
I didn't see anything, massive. He was holding his hammy. Either it was tight or there was an issue there. But obviously, it could be just a tiny little strain. It could be anything, Russ. So
yeah,
he'll have a fitness test tomorrow, and they'll try it. But if there's any inkling of an issue there, he won't play him. The problem with playing Raul, if we get the Raul that played against Cambridge United on Tuesday night, we might as well not bother, because honestly, his attitude, his body language was shocking. It was really poor, really, really poor. And he will get no change on Sunday if he applies himself like that. I promise you.
Yep.
So ultimately, if we get the Raul that's hungry and is at it and wants it and has the right attitude, then we all know what he can deliver, especially from dead ball situations, set pieces, that kind of thing. So yeah, look, I mean, it's not ideal. I still think he lacks the pace. He can't penetrate in the same way. He's not as physical, and that will change the way that Fulham play, Russ. It will change the dynamic. There's no question about it. And Aston Villa's centre halves, they are quite physical. Yep. So you really would want Muniz playing in that game to rough them up a little bit and have that physical element about them. Raul doesn't approach the game in the same way. So that ultimately is going to change the way that Fulham play anyway.
Okay.
But I think you're right. I think Silva goes with exactly the same team, bar any injuries, that he went with against Brentford. Yeah,
right.
100%.
And that makes sense. It totally makes sense. Like I said, I'm actually backing him for this opponent because I'm looking at the opponent. However, I've said this many times. I want to go with what you have thrown out there, Tony. I'm just thinking maybe at Villa Park, this isn't the right time for it. I'm thinking, coming up, I'm going to throw it out there, Sunderland and Burnley. It's the perfect opponents to play against. That I would even say someone such as Nottingham Forest, but not Aston Villa at home. I just don't feel good about it. I'm talking about at their home. I don't feel good about it. At home, I do. Just away from Craven Cottage, no. I would play it a little bit safe, and I usually don't do that, but I think there's an opportunity to beat them, and I think if you're smart, I think you can beat this team. But we shall see, and that will get us to our predictions, Tony. I'll get us going with predictions. I'm a very positive person, but I can't look past the history, and I can't look past the fact that they played like terrible, and now they're playing Fulham. However, I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go 1-1.
And that's very much where I'm looking at it, based on where we've been at Villa Park in recent seasons.
And Chris is agreeing with me.
Based on the fact that we've had some decent results recently, and based on the fact that at some point Villa are going to have an upturn in their luck and performance. If we come away from Villa Park on Sunday with a point, it will be a good point, Russ, given the games that we've got coming up with Bournemouth, Arsenal, and Newcastle.
Yeah.
So I'm going 2-2, Russ.
You're going 2-2, okay. And honestly, Tony, 2-2, 1-1, I'd be thrilled with that. I would be very happy with that, because that to me is progress. What they need to do is they just need to continue progressing. And I think getting a point at Villa Park, or a place where they struggle, I think that's progress. You get all 3 points. I'm not going to use the E word. I said it on the last show, but it starts feeling a little good. It starts feeling pretty good. But I'd be very happy with a draw. I'm going to say that right now. So I'm going 1-1. Tony's going 2-2. All right, my friend. Good show as always. Always enjoy doing these shows with you. Like I said, this show, we're live on YouTube, but the podcast version is exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. So please do check out the Cottage Talk Patreon page. Yes, I know. Don't do it, Russ. I know. I didn't say it. Chris, I didn't say it. Paul's going 3-1 to Fulham. We'll see. Listen, Paul.
Take that all day.
Paul, I will take it all day, every day, Paul. And if you're right, I will give you the biggest shout out that you can get. So let's hope you are right, my friend. All right, Tony, final thoughts before we go.
Yeah, looking forward to Sunday. Just hope that we turn up and we do ourselves justice, and we don't, as I said, don't do a Fulham. That's all. I just don't want us to do a Fulham, because I don't want to be talking about this next week or whenever and saying, what, if only, if this, if that, should have, could have, would have. Let's just hope we turn up and do the best that we can.
Right. And actually, that's a great way to end this show, because my final thoughts would echo this. Lay it all out there. You've got nothing to fear. Go in there. Give them the respect that they deserve, not too much respect. And just think that this is an opportunity for you, and play with no fear. And if they do all that and lose, Tony, I can live with that. If I see that the performance is there, but Villa were just better on the day, or got the goal that Fulham couldn't get, I can live with that. But like you mentioned, if you don't show up, and that to me would be doing a Fulham, they don't show up, then that's a different thing altogether. Show up, give an effort, give everything that you can, and if you don't get the result that we want, I can live with that as long as I see progress, Tony. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, absolutely right.
And I think most of us would feel that way. We hate to lose. I hate to lose, and I like to win. But if I know that Fulham gave it everything that they can, and it was just a goal here or there, and it was close, I can live with it. And that's just the way I always look at it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. He's Tony Gold. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.